Hey, not everyone's an accountant. Not everyone likes numbers. But you still want to participate in those church discussions around finances and budget. So, how to make sense of those financial statements? Well, if that describes you, then this video's for you. Someone has said that budgets are moral documents. This is true. Financial statements, reports on where the church is at financially, and budgets, where the church aims to go in the future financially, reflect our values. They reflect our commitments. They reflect where our treasure is, and so they reflect where our heart is. Budgets are also stories written in numbers. Behind the numbers in a financial statement or a budget, there's a story of who you have been as a church in the past and who you want to be moving into the future. All this is why it's important for all church members, not just number lovers, to be able to make sense of financial statements. Financial statements vary in terms of how they are laid out, but the basic elements are the same. For this video, we're going to use our regional church financial statements as our example. As you look at your church's financial statements, look for the elements that I'm describing, remembering that they might not be in exactly the same place on the page. Financial statements often have a one-page overview first, followed by pages with more detail on specific areas, typically called schedules. We're going to focus on the overview page, but these things apply to the specific schedules as well. When you look at that first overview page, you'll see revenues or income listed in one section and expenses or expenditures in another. Revenue is the money the church has received or expects to receive in order to pay the staff and operate the programs and keep up the facilities. Expenses is where that money goes to pay for the staff and programs and facilities. You'll see a few columns in each of these areas. In our regular financial statements, we have 4 columns. The first is actual year to date. This lists how much has been received or spent in that particular area during the current fiscal year up to the present. Your church's fiscal year is the 12-month period your church has decided to use for its regular budgeting and reporting. It doesn't necessarily run from January through December like a calendar year, but most churches do. Next is budget year to date. This lists how much we had budgeted for in that particular area, how much we would expect to receive or to spend in that area so far this year. Then there's a column called over/under budget. That tells you how much we are over or under what we had planned for money received or spent in that particular area. If it's over the expected amount, it will be in regular print. If it's under the expected amount, it will be listed in parentheses or have a negative sign in front. Finally, we have a column called budget current year. This is the total amount budgeted to receive or spend in the particular area for the entire year. Some financial statements will have other columns. You might see a column that gives the actual spending in the previous year for each area, either up to that point in the year or for the whole year. You might see a column that gives the previous year's budgeted amount for that area. All of these columns allow you to compare between what was planned or expected, the budget, and where things currently are, the actual. Or they allow you to compare the current year with previous years. And this information is important for what it tells you about your church's story. Are things going as planned among us? What unexpected problems have we encountered? How invested are people in the life and programs of the church? What are some challenges that we might face in the coming months? Financial reports aren't the only way to answer these questions, of course, but they can be an important tool to help you answer those questions and understand your congregation's story. At the bottom of the page is the bottom line. the net result of revenue minus expenses. For a nonprofit organization such as a church, you want to see a number close to zero. The church doesn't exist to make money, but neither do we want to lose it. Once all the staff have been paid, the programs have been run, and the facilities have been taken care of, and with some money set aside for reserve funds for future needs, you want that bottom line to be zero. If it's less than zero, if the amount of money you've received is less than your expenses, then you have a deficit. If you've received more than your expenses, you have a surplus. Both a deficit and a surplus present challenges for a church, though of course a surplus is the better problem to have. If you have a surplus at the end of your fiscal year, you need to decide what to do with it. You might wish to top up some of your giving to ministry partners, ministries your church supports, such as International Witness Partners, or ministries your church is a member of, such as Mennonite Church Manitoba. You might decide to put more than usual into your rainy day fund, a reserve fund your church has, or a capital fund for major facilities repairs or upgrades. If you have a deficit, you'll need to draw on some of those reserve funds. Deficits are not always bad. There are sometimes good reasons to budget for a deficit. It's all about how well your church can manage those deficits and for how long. If there are good reasons for a deficit which are short-term, and you have the reserve funds to support that deficit, you're still in good shape. However, if there's reason to think that the deficit might be longer-term, or you don't have enough reserve funds in place, you'll have to make some hard decisions as a church around staffing, programming, or facilities. The church is more than its money. We all know this. The church is about followers of Jesus coming together to worship, to learn, to be together, to break bread together, to encourage one another toward love and good deeds, to serve one another, and to reach out beyond our walls with the love of Jesus to the world around us. But these things require our shared resources, our skills, our knowledge, our experience, our time and energy, and our money. May we continue to be generous with all our gifts for the building up of the body of Christ and the furthering of Christ's mission, locally, regionally, across our nation, and around the world. Thanks. Take care, friends.